They say the desert remembers everything, even when the dunes shift, when the wind buries entire worlds, the sand keeps its secrets. I am an old man now, and I have no right to speak of what I know, but silence is a heavier curse than truth, and my dreams have grown cruel. So listen and remember this story, for one day the sand may whisper it to you as well. Long before Cairo was built, before men tamed the river and called it theirs, there stood a monastery far beyond the reach of any traveler's map. The villagers called it Deir el-Sahra, the monastery of the desert. It was said to have been raised not by men, but by those who wished to keep something asleep beneath the earth. No one went there willingly, not even the Bedouins who roamed the wastelands. They said that the monks of Deir el-Sahra never prayed for the living or the dead. They prayed for the silence of the deep. I saw it once when I was a boy, herding goats near the western dunes. At sunset, when the world turned gold and red, I caught sight of a dome half buried in sand, its cross eroded by time. I thought it was abandoned. Foolish child that I was, I crept closer, calling out, hoping for shade or water. That was when I heard it, the chanting, a low, rhythmic murmur rising from beneath the earth. It was not in any tongue I knew, nor Coptic, nor Arabic, nor even the ancient speech my grandfather used in his prayers. It was older, deeper, like the desert itself was humming. The sound made the air feel heavy. My goat bolted. I should have run too, but I was rooted to the spot, listening. The chant rose and fell like the tide of the Nile, patient and unending. Then, without warning, it stopped. The silence that followed was worse, so thick it pressed on my ears. A moment later, I heard something else. A single breath drawn from beneath the sand, long and shuddering, like something vast had just awakened. I fled. For years, I told myself it was the wind through the old stones, but I never went back. Until the year the rains failed. You see, our village depended on the wells, and that year, every one of them turned bitter. The old men said the ground itself had soured. So the elders sent me and 2 others to find a new spring near the western ridge. It was there, after 3 days in the burning wind, that we stumbled upon the monastery again, unburied this time, half revealed by a storm that had torn the dunes away. It stood like a fossil of faith, carved from black stone that shimmered under the moon. The great doors were closed, but the air was thick with the smell of incense and dust. My companions wanted to leave at once, but I saw a faint light moving behind a narrow slit in the wall. A candle, or so I thought. We knocked. No answer. Then a voice came from inside, old and hollow. The chant must not stop. The doors creaked open. Inside, we found a single corridor sloping downward, lined with walls covered in faded inscriptions, half hieroglyphs, half script I could not read. The air was colder than the night outside. We followed the sound deeper, drawn to the heartbeat of that strange chanting. At the end of the passage lay a great hall. There, dozens of monks sat cross-legged in circles, their heads bowed, their lips moving in perfect unison. None of them looked up as we entered. Their robes were the color of sand, their faces pale as bone. In the center of the hall was a pit, round and deep, from which the chanting seemed to rise like smoke. Every monk faced that pit, as though their voices were holding something inside it. I whispered to one of them, asking if we might have water. He did not answer. He did not even blink. Then I noticed something that chilled me more than the cold air. Their chests did not rise or fall. They were not breathing, yet the chant continued. We backed away, trembling, but one of the monks, the eldest, with eyes clouded like milk, suddenly turned his head toward me. His voice was dry and thin. "You should not have come here, son of the sand. Leave while the rhythm holds." I asked him what he meant, but he only lifted a trembling hand toward the pit. "The voice beneath dreams," he said. "If the chant breaks, it will remember the world." The ground trembled then, just slightly. A ripple of dust fell from the ceiling. For a heartbeat, the monks faltered. The chant wavered. And in that brief silence, a sound rose from the pit. A whisper so vast it felt like the earth itself spoke. Hun-ak. My ears rang. My heart felt as if it would stop. The monks screamed, if you can call that thin, breathless noise a scream, and their chants surged louder, frantic now, desperate to drown the word. The eldest among them fell forward, his hands clutching the floor, his mouth bleeding sand. We ran. We didn't stop until the stars blurred above us. My companions never spoke again after that night. One hung himself by the well a week later. The other wandered into the dunes and was never found. I lived, but the chant never left me. Sometimes when the wind passes through the palm trees, I hear it again, faint and patient, like a memory that refuses to fade.
Years passed. I grew old, but curiosity is a curse, and the desert never forgets its witnesses. I returned once more in my 50th year when I heard rumors that the monastery had been uncovered again after another storm. The young men who found it said the doors were sealed from the inside, and when they listened closely, they could hear a single voice still chanting below, only one. So I went, alone. The dunes had shifted, swallowing most of the structure. I dug through the sand until I found the entrance, cracked open like a wound. The air that escaped was dry and heavy with age. I descended again into that same corridor, guided by the faint echo of that eternal song. Inside the hall, the monks were gone. All that remained were their robes, empty, scattered like fallen leaves. But the pit was still there, and from its depths came the sound of one voice, the same chant, the same words, but weaker now, trembling. I crawled to the edge and peered down. There, far below, I saw the old monk, the one who had spoken to me all those years ago. His skin had turned gray, his body brittle as stone, yet his lips still moved. His eyes met mine, and for a moment I thought I saw gratitude or warning. I asked him, "What are you keeping down there?" His lips moved, but I heard no words, only the chanting. Then, for the first time, the voice stopped. The stillness was unbearable. Dust floated in the air like ash. I heard something shift far below, a cracking, a stirring, as though something vast and ancient had turned in its sleep. And then came the breath again, that same deep inhale that had haunted my childhood. It filled the hall like wind from a tomb. I stumbled backward, whispering prayers, but the old monk reached out a trembling hand toward me. His mouth opened wide, not in fear, but command. "Sing," he rasped. "It remembers the silence. Sing." So I did. I didn't know the words, but the sound came from me anyway, rising unbidden, echoing the old rhythm I'd heard my whole life. My voice joined his, shaking, cracking.
The rumble grew louder, the floor shuddered, and sand poured from the ceiling like rain. Then suddenly, a stillness spread again, like the desert drawing breath, and the pit went silent. When I opened my eyes, the monk was gone. Only his robe remained, lying across the stone like an empty skin. I fled once more, running through the corridors as the sands began to collapse behind me. When I emerged into the moonlight, the monastery was sinking, the dunes reclaiming it grain by grain. Within moments, it was gone. Only the wind remained, and beneath it, if you listened closely, the faintest echo of a chant. That was many years ago. Since then, no storm has uncovered Deir el-Sara again. But I have heard stories from travelers, strange tremors in the western dunes, whispers carried by the wind at dusk, a humming beneath the sand like the breath of the earth. Sometimes, when the night is very still, I feel it again, the rhythm beneath my feet, slow and patient, the same rhythm I once matched without knowing, when the old monk told me to sing. I think I helped seal it once more. But the desert is never truly silent, and when the wind dies, I fear I will hear the chant stop again. For the desert remembers. It remembers every voice, every prayer, every promise whispered to keep the dark asleep. So if ever you find yourself wandering too far from the river, and you see the sand shifting though the air is still, do not listen to the wind. Do not follow the hum beneath the dunes. The monks are gone, and their song has ended. And somewhere, beneath the earth of Egypt, something ancient waits for silence.